Hello and welcome to the Fiber Circus. This is episode 4. It's Wednesday, September 12th, 2018. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Ravelry as Spotted Circus, or you can feel free to email me if you have any questions at spottedcircusalpacas@yahoo.com. If you want, please subscribe down below. There's a button right down there that says subscribe. Any new subscribers, it really helps out with getting my videos out a little bit more. And if you're a returning viewer, thanks a lot for sticking around for 4 episodes so far. And if you're a new viewer, welcome to the fun. So let's see. First up, we've got works in progress. Really, I only knit on one thing over the last 2 weeks because I've become semi-monogamous somewhat. And it's my portage sweater. And my portage sweater has the back finally finished. So, I did... last time when I recorded, I was up here, so I did all the ribbing, and now I'm working on picking up all the stitches all the way up out around the neckline and whatnot. This is the part that I personally hate, because I'm not awesome at picking up stitches, but you can see I'm trying to pick up so many stitches per row. We'll see how it goes. Once I get all those stitches picked up, I think I've got something like 6 inches of garter stitch to go to do the neckline, and then I'll also be putting in some pockets, and then we'll be on to Sleeve Island. So the end is somewhat near. I looked it up and I started this on July 27th, so it took me about a month to knit the back, which that's still quite a while, but it could be worse. So here's where I'm at right now on the pattern. I'm here starting to work on this neckline area, and it'll incorporate these pockets at some point in there too. So, once again, that's Portage by Melissa Schwacheri. It's being knit out of the Spotted Circus's Polworth DK, which is a 100% Polworth, and the colorway is called Neon Mermaid. And I should have some more of this up in the shop in a few weeks, probably, because I actually just got in some more of my Polworth, and I actually did a tension gauge swatch, so you can see how it kind of knits up. It's pretty. It's nice and bright, but it's not too in your face, I think. It's being kept currently in my Bags by Awesome Granny bag, which has these cute little firefly kids chasing fireflies. It'd be kind of cool if there was a way to make the fireflies glow in the dark. Not that I'd be knitting this in the dark, but it would be kind of cool anyways. And I suppose I probably could with puffy paint, now that I think about it. But maybe someday I might do that. So that's all I've really been actively working on as far as real knitting goes, except for my new cast on. So I got in a new yarn base, and when you get in something new, you need to really knit something out of it to show people what it looks like. So what I've been doing is I cast on for the Beloved hat. And it's a free pattern on Ravelry, and it's by Solon Coulorer. Right there. So it's an Aran weight hat. Several people had actually made this hat out of the yarn base that I decided to use. So this is one of my new yarns, and I'm calling this colorway Frost. It's a white that's variegated with some purple and some light blues. There's a few speckles of gray and black in there as well. And it's an interestingly constructed yarn. So if you can see it up close-ish, you can see it's a chain construction. So there's actually a tube here that's constructed out of silk, and then they blow the alpaca and the merino into it. So it's a 56% silk, 40% alpaca, 4% merino. It's got a really nice halo to it, so it's somewhat, there we go. It's somewhat fuzzy of a yarn, which is kind of different. And I'm knitting these on size 9 needles. So I've got about 6 inches of the top done so far, and it's knitting up really pretty. I kind of like the halo that's going on. This yarn is a base from a company out of Canada, and they actually just had it released being used in a sweater in Pom Pom Quarterly called the Ceridwen sweater. And I really liked it and thought, you know, I wanted to see if they would actually sell it wholesale undyed. And so that's where it came from. So it's knitting up pretty nice. I like it so far. It's extremely lightweight. This yarn, there's a let me see, 164 yards, and these are 50-gram balls. So if you think about that, that's extremely lightweight. It's a yarn I think I'm going to start carrying. I just needed to actually get some in and try it out. So we cast that on this week, and I've been working on it pretty well. And it's sitting in a Halloween bag from the Fat Squirrel. And the Fat Squirrel's actually here in Indiana, just like me. She's up closer to Indianapolis, but I thought this bag was kind of cute with all the little bitty skeletons and the cat heads. And it's very festive and Halloweeny, and I like Halloween. So that is my only cast on in the last 2 weeks. I haven't finished anything. No real surprise there. I'm a slow knitter. And I've also been dyeing quite a bit and getting into a lot of machine knitting. So I'll move into the machine knitting. So the last 2 weeks I've been working on attempting to clean a little bit out around the house. And when you start cleaning, you discover things and you're like, oh, I really need to play with this. So I got out one of my machines, and it's a Brother, let me think, 970. It's a computerized model, and it had a disk drive with it, a little 3.5-inch floppy drive, and I had a ton of discs for it that, unfortunately, when I plugged in the disk drive, it didn't work. So I actually opened up the disk drive and found out there was a little drive band in there that was stretched out, which, you know, it's like a 20-year-old disk drive. I'm just glad that it works, period. So I ordered in this little $14 rubber band, replaced it, and then the disk drive started to work, which was awesome because it had some patterns on it that I really wanted to try. So part of the estate sales that I went to, I got this book. It's called The Electric Rainbow, and it was printed in 1988. So I would have been 9 years old when this was printed. So, but when I looked at it, I saw all these patterns, and I thought, wow, those would be so cool to be able to do in like the natural colors of alpaca, you know, and just how much fun it would be. However, it required the disk drive, number one, and it also required you to be able to knit in what's called Double Bed Jaquard. And Double Bed Jaquard is when you're using needles on both the front bed and on the river bed, and they're both knitting at the same time with different things. So the disc, what the disc did for me was it selected a pattern. Let me see. All right, so this is the one that I used. It was called the Satin Flame. And this is the patterning notes for it. So this is how the needles are getting selected for the different colors. And then there's actually notes over here to tell you which color it is you're going to use. So I set up a color changer that held 4 colors at the same time, put in my disk drive and loaded it into the machine. And I started knitting. And it took quite a while to get anything to happen. The first 5 or 6 attempts, stuff just didn't work right, and I sat there questioning, well, is it my yarn problems? You know, is this a tension issue? And I just couldn't get it to start casting on. I could get it to do plain ribbing, and I could get it to knit in a circle, but I couldn't get it to knit with all the needles all at the same time. And so I left it, and I came back the next day, and I don't know what happened overnight. Maybe the machine sensed that I was getting a little bit angry at it, but for some reason it started to work. So this is my Double Bed Jaquard Satin Flame that I did. It's a really firm fabric because it's being knit at this with this side and with the back side. So if you look at it, you can see there's 4 different colors. So there's the black, the purple, the pink, and then this kind of salmon-y, pinky color. And I did pretty good. I mean, there's a pattern problem right there. And that's, I know what happened. I knit across and the yarn jumped out of the yarn feeder, and so like half the stitches fell off, which kind of sucked. So the back, you can see it's knitting those same colors as it goes across. So if you think about the needles going like this, the yarn is being knit by both some of these needles and some of these needles at the same time as it's going across. So it makes for a really tight fabric. It's really dense. There's still some stretch to it, so you can kind of stretch it a little bit. I was going pretty good. I think this was almost 400 rows worth of knitting. And so that's 3, 6, it's about 12 inches of stuff. I was hoping to get, you know, maybe enough to have a cowl of some sort. But then I went across and everything fell off. And I said, well, that was a nice try. So I bound it off. Not real sure what I'm going to do with just this little piece. I guess I could like maybe fold it in half and sew it together and make it into a little pouch of some sort, which might be kind of cute. This is made with acrylic because the acrylic is great for practicing for, and it's really cheap because I have it on a cone. Unfortunately, I only have like one cone each of these really nice bright colors, and everything else is like baby blue, baby green, white. There's lots of little old lady pinky mauve colors that just aren't my style, but you know, you can practice with them. That's all that really matters. So eventually I'm going to come back, and I'm probably going to try to do some bigger sections of this. This was only one repeat wide, which I think was about 40 stitches. And so if I did something a little bit wider, I think you could make some really cool scarves with it. I may need to loosen up my tension slightly on this, because it is a really dense material, but I definitely think it looks really cool. I mean, this didn't take me very long once I got it cast on and knitting correctly. It was just the initial getting the yarn to be happy enough to knit. So that was the first thing that I worked on, and I was pretty proud of myself once I got that going, because managing 4 colors at once and paying attention to what's happening is it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, and all it takes is you moving your carriage just a little bit too fast and things go all to heck. I do have a video of me doing some of the Double Bed Jaquard, and so I'll try to put it in up here right now. So that way you can see some of it. So after I got out of my Double Bed Jaquard phase, I decided, darn it, I want to cast on a sweater. So I knew that I wanted to do a faded style cardigan out of some Wollmeise yarn that I had. The problem is that I didn't really have a specific pattern for the size that I wanted. I had the measurements for the So Faded cardigan, and I had the measurements for, what's the other one called? The regular faded sweater that was put out. And so I was looking at those measurements trying to figure out, okay, if this is this and my tension is this, how am I going to get this? I tried out a program called Sweater Maker, and it's designed specifically for machine knitting. And you put in what your tension is, and then you can pre-select from a raglan style, drop shoulder, set in sleeves, and you can make adjustments to the measurements of the sweater in order to get an actual printed out pattern. The issue that I have with it is that you can't incorporate shaping at all unless it's flared out at the bottom. Unless it's flared out at the chest for some reason. So the majority of their sweaters start out and then go upwards for the bust and then go inwards, and I kind of wanted it to flare outwards and come in at the chest, so I had to do some modifications. I started this on Saturday, and on Saturday I knit the back of the sweater, and I thought it looked a little bit long when I was knitting it, but I had done a gauge swatch and I knew that my gauge was right, and looking at the numbers, they didn't seem too far off from a standard cardigan pattern. So then I also knit the fronts, and by the time I knit the fronts, it was like a dress on me, and it was about halfway down to my knees, and I was running really low on color number 4 in order to be able to do this, the arms on the sweater. So I ripped it all out, and that was probably, I'd bet, a little over 1,200 yards worth of knitting. The good thing about machine knitting is you don't hesitate as much in order to rip things out, because it's really quick to tear out, and then it's really easy to redo. So I redid the back, and I redid both the fronts, and I shortened them up by about 5 inches, if I remember right. Then I knit a sleeve, and when I got the sleeve off, I thought looking at it on the machine it was a little bit big, and I should have really had somebody hold up a tape measure to me and see that my underarm seam is not 19 inches long. It was probably a good 6 inches long over the wrist too. So I tore that out, and I just redid that today. So now I have 2 fronts, a back, and 1 sleeve, and I may be able to finish up the other sleeve tonight, and then I'll work on seaming it all together and pray to God that it fits correctly. So here's the back of the sweater that I did. So you can see there's 4 different colors that fade. So down here at the very bottom, I used my ribber, and I did some 1x1 ribbing. And this colorway was one of the Weird Different skeins, and it's in the color Mond I'm 7 Haus, which I haven't really been able to find on their website, but it was one of the Weird Different skeins, so that could be why. The next set of colors right here is called Guide to the Galaxy, and then it fades up into a colorway called Gluckstag, and then up at the very top here, it goes into Mamba Samba, which is also John Deere green and yellow. So this should fit pretty decent. It should be a somewhat long cardigan, like past my waist, more like a hip length cardigan, and it's a raglan style. So I had to do, the shaping started down here for the armpits and shoulders, and then goes clear up to here. So I'm going to have to sew this entire seam, and then it also has me picking up for a button band. So when I get it seamed together, I think I may block it first and then seam it to make sure that it's going to fit. And then reevaluate this button band thing, because it basically has me knitting an 1.5 inch wide strip of ribbing for like 60 or 70 some odd inches. And so before I go doing that and putting buttonholes in that, I really want to have this blocked out to measure to make sure that that's where it goes. I don't like seaming, so it's not going to be very fun. It's going to be a lot of stitches. I want to try to get it done though before I leave for Colorado on Monday, because then I'll have something to work on there that night at the ranch. And hopefully I can maybe get it sewn up before the next podcast. I'm hoping it fits. I mean, I'm not real hesitant to rip it back out again. My only issue with ripping it back out again is every time I go to use the colors again, the balls are different lengths. So I'm starting to get a bunch of small balls versus one continuous piece of yarn like I used to have, so I'm getting more ends to weave in, which does kind of suck. But I think that the colors flow together really nicely. I'll probably actually wear it with this side out, with the pearl side out, because I think that it blends a little bit better. Didn't realize the weird pooling here until I just looked at that on the camera, but yeah, it's definitely pooling there, kind of strange. And those two spots there are a little bit weird, but thankfully those will be on my back, so hopefully those won't look a little bit odd in the front too. So that's what I've been working on with my machine knitting. I'm working on finding a place for this winter to actually do a class. I have enough machines in order to do probably 5 or 6 people at once, with showing them how to work a machine, how to do some of the basics on the machine, and just try to get people a little more interested in it. They're a lot of fun. I really like my machine. It's a lot faster, obviously. I mean, I knit this whole back in like several hours, and this is a fingering weight versus my DK weight sweater, which took me a month just to do the back, and that was only like 400 yards. So machine knitting's quite a bit of fun in my opinion. Spinning wise, unfortunately, I didn't spin anything this past week, mainly because I've been dying in machine knitting, so no spinning this time. I do have a few small acquisitions though. If you've watched a few other podcasts, there was a podcast called The Dyer's Notebook that was put on by Laura, who is Gynx Yarn down in Texas. And she announced last week, I think it was, that she was getting out of dyeing because the dyes were starting to irritate her asthma. And when that happens, you've really got to think, is this worth it for your health? So she had a last big shop update, and I'd never bought any of her yarns, but I always wanted to. So I actually picked up a skein. This is called House Cup. It's on her glitzy self-striping base. And it has 3 rows of blue, 3 rows of bronze, 3 rows of green, 3 rows of light gray, 3 rows of yellow, 3 rows of black, 3 rows of deep red, and 3 rows of golden yellow. So it's very much based on Harry Potter, House Cup type colors. It's really pretty. I'm sorry to see her go because she's a pretty cool dyer. She did a lot of fun dark gothy colors. But once again, your health really has to come first, so I understand completely. The other acquisition that I had this week was I'm a Patreon supporter of a dyer out in California called Frost Yarn. Frost has a bunch of tutorials on YouTube, and she's really kind of neat to follow on Instagram. She's very open about how she dyes and the colors that she uses and the techniques that she uses. And so that's the only Patreon thing that I actually support right now because I think that what she's doing is really awesome. And so as a result of being one of her Patreon members, I'm a member of her bat club. So every 3 months I get 3 bats in the mail. And this round was based on like a rusty looking piece of like coppery iron. And so they're all coordinated. So this is the first bat. And I haven't taken them out of the plastic yet, but this is totally going to be the next thing that I spin probably. So there's bat number 1, bat number 2, and then bat number 3. And the pictures that she posted show they really flow from the orangey rust color into a gold and then into a bit of a gray and a turquoise. So these 3 bats total are about a little under a pound. So I'm probably going to spin them as a single and then either chain ply them or ply them back with a thread of some sort is my guess, because I definitely want to maintain the color changes through it. They're mostly merino with some Firestar, Angelina, bamboo, some silk. I'm trying to see what else I see in there. She usually uses a lot of silk noil in her tutorials. But I really love her dyeing techniques and her openness and willing to share what it is she's learned. If you ever get a chance to take a class from her, I'm very jealous. Unfortunately, the couple classes that she's come out this way to teach, I've been busy during those times, otherwise I'd take one. Because, you know, you can always learn something from somebody else. And she definitely is a really interesting and unique person. So if you don't follow her on Instagram, her Instagram handle is Frost Yarns, and I'd highly recommend that you do. So, coming attractions and upcoming classes. Next week I'm going to be traveling up to northern Colorado to do some commercial alpaca sorting for the Alpaca Coalition of America. My guess is that there's going to be probably between 300 to 400 fleeces, maybe more, that we're going to be sorting. And when we sort by color first off, like textile color. We then sort by length, and then by a 3-micron spread, taking into account the primaries and guard hair within there. I'll try to do a video of sorting a fleece while I'm out there, if I remember. It's a really interesting thing. The bales then all get combined into the light grades and then actually get sold on the commercial market. I know that some of the fiber that I've sorted has ended up at Ralph Lauren, and Pier 1, I think, has used some of it. So it's really kind of an interesting project to be involved in. And it's at one of my favorite farms, Red Granite Ranch, up in Livermore. And I actually have a female out there that's been breeding, and her name's Blackout. So when I come back, I'm going to be picking up Blackout, and then she's going to have a little friend that's riding along with her. And her little friend's name is Little Gnome. And Little Gnome is named because her dad, I think, is Big Gnome. Which, okay, that's kind of an odd name. But when she was born, for some reason, it was like her tongue was too long for her mouth, and her tongue would just kind of hang out the side, and she'd be all and you'd have to tuck her tongue back into her mouth so that way she could nurse. It was really kind of cute, but kind of odd, and eventually her tongue grew into the right size. But she's coming back to live with my friends Morgan and Judy down at Rolling Oaks Alpaca Ranch in southern Illinois. So if you're going there for Alpaca Farm Days at the end of September, you'll be able to meet Little Gnome. She's very friendly. She's a very cute little girl, so it'll be nice for Blackout to have a buddy for the ride along. And it'll be nice for me to have a companion for the ride, because I think it's like a 14-hour drive. And I drive it straight through, because once I load up the alpacas, they aren't coming out of the van. So they'll be back behind the middle passenger seat hanging out, hopefully getting along well and not spitting at each other. So we'll see. The trip either goes really well or it doesn't go at all well. So that's my big trip coming up. And then I also have SAFF in Asheville, North Carolina from October 26th through 28th. It's a 3-day fiber festival. It's got a really good mix of vendors there. Has everything from bigger names like Miss Babs down to small indie dyers and whatnot. And I'm in about the direct center of the venue. So look for me. I've got a double booth there, and I'll have all sorts of new fun things. I'll have a Spinolution worker bee and a polywog and a firefly there for you to try out, along with Strauss drum carters as well. So I'm going to run a contest, because who doesn't like a giveaway? And I'm hoping that this giveaway will bring in a few more viewers, because right now I have like 17 subscribers, and I know I have more than 17 friends out there, so you need to start subscribing to this. So in order to win, first off, what are you going to win? You can have your choice of any skein of yarn or any type of fiber in the shop. Basically, it's a pick something out of the shop, and whatever it is you want, you get it. And in order to win this thing, what you have to do is subscribe to the podcast. So down straight underneath where I'm at, there's a button that says subscribe. Push it and say, yes, I want to subscribe. You can turn off the notifications by clicking on the little bell if you don't really want to be notified. But then you also need to go to either Instagram or Facebook with the post about this podcast and tag a friend that you think might enjoy the podcast. And if you share the entry, or if you share the post, you know, on Facebook, or if you share the Instagram post, however it is you can do that, it'll give you an extra entry. So the entries will be open until the next podcast, at which point I'll draw a winner. So tell all your friends about the Fiber Circus. I promise I'm entertaining and fun. There'll be lots of more exciting things coming in the future, hopefully. So on to the shop update. So this past week I've been doing quite a bit of dyeing. I've been trying to get some new stuff done and new things up into the store as I'm trying out some new bases. So the first thing that's gone into the shop this past week is this. And this is part of the September spinning box. The theme was luau. And this is a Rambouillet comb top, which is super squishy, and it's in the Tropics colorway. The orange in this should actually fluoresce under black light. I've also been told this is Miami Dolphins colors, which that wasn't the intent, but hey, Hooray for Miami, I guess. So that'll be up in the shop. As you can see, super squishy, really lofty, really easy to spin. I really enjoy my Rambouillet. Then we also have some more of this yarn. So this is the yarn that I'm knitting that hat with, and it's an Aran weight, 164 yards. It's 56% silk, 40% alpaca, and 4% merino in a chain construction, and you can see the chain a little bit better there, and you can see the halo a little bit better. This colorway is called Frost. I only have 3 skeins of it as of right now because I'm gonna be ordering some more. So if you have some specific colors you'd like to see this in, definitely let me know. Now the other yarn base that I got in is a DK weight yarn. There's 137 yards in it, and it's a 45% merino, 25% alpaca, 15% silk, and 15% yak. And who doesn't love a good yak yarn? So I dyed up this colorway. And it's kind of got some deep yellows, some greens, and aquas in it. And that's up in the shop right now. And then I dyed it up in one more color. And this is in a neon pink with some blues and aquas. And it's just really pretty. The fact that the yak is in there, the yak is naturally brown, and it kind of tones the neons down slightly and makes it into more of a jewel tone. So I have those 2 colorways, and I have about 20 more skeins to get dyed up of that. So if you know of specific colors you want for that, let me know. This would make an awesome sweater, I think, or really nice hats. The twist on it's really nice, but it's still, once again, a really lightweight yarn. The other thing I played around with a little bit this week was sock blanks. And I got my Cricut with the intention of cutting stencils in order to do my sock blanks. And I have a couple sock blanks already up in the shop. I have them on both my alpaca bamboo merino nylon base, and I have it on a Superwash merino nylon base. And I'm still learning, so they're slightly discounted right now because I'm having some issues with the color bleeding out. And it's because my yarn's still a little bit too wet when I dealt with it. So I have this one, and it's basically neon alpacas. So how will this knit up? So if you're knitting it, you're starting at one of the ends and unraveling it as you knit. So there's going to be white and then flecks of color as you knit back and forth. So that's kind of how a sock blank works. I think it'll be really kind of pretty. Most of these colors will glow under black light, except for the black and the blue, if I remember right. So you can see, though, there's a little bit of bleeding issues, which I wasn't too thrilled about, but I'm learning. Then I did one with some ghosts. So I have some ghosts and bats and some dots of ectoplasmic goo. And that one was a little bit better. You know, once again, I'm practicing and learning. And then I had a kind of fun stencil that says, "Save your drama for your llama," and llama love. And that's what I did that the whole way down the sock blank. And this one turned out a little bit better, I think. I had a few little areas that are a little bit bleedy, but it's not too bad. But I thought that was kind of a cute stencil with the llama on there. So I have those, and then I have, I tried to do one that was Wizard of Oz themed, but the flying monkeys became kind of flying brown blobs, and the witch kind of looks like she was already melting. So, you know, definitely discounted, but you know, it's still high quality yarn, and it'll still produce beautiful colors. It's just a little funky looking. So I think that's it for my shop update. Moving on to the sideshow, we're going to go out and visit with Maggie the llama this week. A little update on our Kriya. She's still doing all right. After our last visit, the vet thought that she might still need to have her eyeball removed. But unfortunately right now she's just not big enough for it. And most of the vets wouldn't want to even think about doing that till she's at least 3 or 4 months old. So we're continuing to medicate it, and it's actually kind of interesting to see the progression from week to week, because I'm taking weekly pictures to like put together in a slideshow to show the progression. I won't put them up here because they're pretty gross still, but her eye's definitely improving somewhat. She's probably definitely not going to get sight back in it, unfortunately, but You know, if we can preserve the eyeballs, that way she doesn't have to wear an eye patch for the rest of her life, it'd be kind of nice. We did unfortunately have a loss this past weekend, though. We went out on Labor Day. Yeah, that's what holiday it just was. And we had a girl that I noticed 2 days ago had started to lose some weight dramatically. And we went out, and there was nothing really significant as far as on her fecal. She didn't have parasites. She wasn't really acting very off, and she was a very laid-back girl to begin with, which didn't help us out very much. And when we went out that morning, she was struggling to breathe, and it was pretty obvious that she'd been down on the ground and hadn't gotten up very easily during the night. So we called the vet and got her in as an emergency, and they said she has acute pneumonia, and they said less than 50% chance that she's going to make it. So we put some antibiotics into her and made her as comfortable as what we could and brought her back. Unfortunately, we lost her that night at about 2 a.m. I was going out every hour to check on her, and she just couldn't make it. The part that really sucks is she was due with a baby next month, and she was our top show animal too. So that was quite a big hit for us, and it really kind of sucks. I got her specifically because she was this really interesting lavender color, and her fleece was gorgeous, and that's what I was hoping to recreate. So, you know, when we lost her, I was pretty upset. I'm still somewhat upset about it. You know, unfortunately, shit happens. You know, she didn't show any signs that she had pneumonia until the very last minute. The vet thinks it's possible that she may have aspirated or choked on some food, which would have caused the pneumonia, but we're not 100% sure, unfortunately. So that really kind of sucked. So hopefully Maggie the llama, who we're going to go outside and visit, is pregnant. If she's not, she's really fat right now. So hopefully you'll enjoy seeing Miss Fat Maggie. And the Creole will probably make some appearances in there too. She's taken to spitting on me recently. She acts all cute and comes up to you like she wants you to pet her and touch her. And then you lean down to say hi to her and she spits on you. Luckily it's just an air spit right now because she doesn't really have any goo inside of her that she's chewing on to release. But I hope that that doesn't carry on to adulthood, because I really don't want an alpaca that looks at me and spits every time. So hopefully she gets over that pretty quick. So otherwise, I guess that's it for this week. I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Don't forget to enter the contest and subscribe below and recommend this podcast to all your buddies and all your friends. I'll probably have some video from the sort that I'm doing next week in next week's podcast. So if you're interested at all in sorting commercial fleece or attempting to sort fleece in general, you might want to tune in because it should be pretty interesting. And I'll probably have pictures of my 2 companions in the back of the van as we drive from Colorado back to Indiana. So thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye! So this is Maggie the llama. A lot of people want to know, how do you know it's a llama and not an alpaca? If you look at Maggie's ears, you can see, hey, where are you going? That they're kind of curved. They kind of curve in like a banana. Versus the alpacas, which have straight up and down ears. Maggie's also quite a bit bigger. She's roughly 200 and some odd pounds. Right now we're playing the game of are you fat or are you pregnant with Maggie? Because we can't really tell. She may just be fat. We're hoping she's pregnant. Maggie's very friendly. She's a Surrey llama, so you can tell she's a Surrey. If you kind of look at her tail, she's got dreadlocks, and on her legs, she's shaved right now, so it's a little bit harder to tell. We tend to call her Nurse Maggie, because she tends to have her nose about an inch away from anything that we're doing, whether it's shots, or whether we're trimming somebody else's toenails. Maggie's usually in on it. So, llamas are kind of like a dog. They like to hang out with you, for the most part. She likes to have scratches. She's pretty nice. She's a friendly llama, which is nice. I think she's about 5 years old, if I remember right. We're hoping she's pregnant. Hi, Maggie. You can see some of her pretty little locks there on the side where I didn't trim quite right. When you look over the top of her, pregnant or fat? We don't know. The Crea seems to like her quite a bit. Kind of chases her around a little. But Maggie's definitely a Surrey llama. Her friend in the back there, Dreams, is a silky llama. And a silky is basically a Surrey without lock structure. So you can kind of see her little locks there. And it's actually really fine fiber. I'd say she's running in the low 20s, roughly. She's a nice girl. Maggie's kind of nosy. We're hoping she's pregnant because we have a high demand for llama babies right now, actually. So she's our only chance this year because she's the only one that we bred this year. But I've also seen her flirting across the fence with anybody who will look at her. So hopefully we'll have baby llama in the next couple weeks. If not, she needs to have a new date. So, but yep, that's it. You can definitely see her banana ears here, how they curve in. Versus this one, who of course won't stick her ears up. Alright, that one. Her ears are definitely straighter. Those are really fuzzy ears too. That's outer vision. She's also a little bit nosy. But yeah, this is Maggie. And llamas are a lot of fun. As you can see, she doesn't spit. You know, llamas spit if they're mad or if they're fighting over food. They don't tend to just look at you and spit. Now the baby, on the other hand, she's a little bit of a spitter. And I'll see if I can get a video of her a little bit later on.